Hi, everyone.
Wait.
Welcome back to the...
It wasn't me this time.
I was texting. I wasn't ready.
All right, you ready now?
Yeah, I'm ready now.
Okay, Nina, if you're ready.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Casual Obsession Horror Podcast, the horror podcast where we talk about horror movies. And my name's Nina, and these incorrigible people are my co-hosts.
I'm a co-host, and I'm named Noah.
I'm a co-host, and I'm named Emma. No, we should have kept going, Jeff.
That would have been funny.
It was perfectly in sync on my end.
Oh my god.
Oops.
And Jeff.
I'm also
Anyway.
a co-host, and I interrupt people.
And
My name
the
is
rest.
Jeff.
Yeah, and today we're talking about What We Do in the Shadows, a movie that came out in 2014, and is pretty good. I'm gonna do my little description of this movie. It's a mockumentary set in New Zealand about a fictional society of vampires who gather annually or so to celebrate being vampires together. And we follow a group of 3 housemates on their preparations for this banquet together. So yeah, I think that's all I can say without really spoiling anything. It is a comedy. It's got Taika Waititi, who directed a bunch of really cool stuff. Like Thor Ragnarok is probably his most well-known thing, but he also directed some other smaller films, like Hunt for the Wilder People, and a bigger
Jojo
one,
Rabbit.
Jojo Rabbit. It was actually nominated for stuff, so I guess that doesn't count as small. But yeah, let's go right on into ratings. Jeff, do you want to start, since I know that you're maybe the only one who hadn't seen it?
Since you're going to interrupt us if we don't let you go first anyway, Jeff.
Wait, what about the professional ratings?
Yeah, I was about to point
Oh.
out, about 50% of the time, we do critical ratings before our own ratings.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Noah has them up.
the critical ratings include a 7.7 on IMDb, 96% Rotten Tomatoes, 76% Metacritic, and 4.1 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Okay,
That's fun.
Yeah.
Those are some good ratings.
those are good
Yeah.
ratings.
Pretty positive overall.
It feels a little low, honestly. I
Right?
give this movie 10 out of 11.
Interesting.
Fuck
I
you.
think it
That
was just
converts to about
everything.
a 9.3 out of 10.
I think it did just about everything that I could have wanted it to do, and I laughed so much. It's probably the funniest movie I've ever watched, but it's too
It's
short.
really good.
If it were longer, I would
Is it
give it
too
11
short?
out of 11.
It's
I
an
think
hour and a
it's-
half.
I think it's
Barely.
the perfect amount.
I think that we'll get
Maybe
to that.
you should watch the TV
I was
show
gonna
then,
say,
mister.
there-
It's not
Well,
long
I'm
enough.
going to.
I'll tell you guys off the bat, definitely watch this movie, but I wouldn't say that the spoilers in our spoiler discussion are going to ruin this movie for you, because
No.
so much of this movie, I've watched it a countless amount of times and I enjoy it every time. And if you enjoy the movie, the TV show carries on that same energy. Maybe a little more sexual in the humor, I think, would be the one thing I would say.
Oh, no.
But other than that, extremely funny. Definitely would recommend if you enjoy the movie. Anyway,
Nice.
Jeff, I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed this because it's one of my faves. Noah.
Well, I give it a 9 out of 10. Not because I don't think it's 10 out of 10 worthy, like Jeff apparently does with his not long enough, but I just,
I don't know why
I
you
don't
say that like
know.
it's such a bad thing to say.
I don't want longer movies. I like
Not
shorter
long
movies.
enough. I mean, that's fair. That's fine. It's just
yeah, I like shorter movies. I'm very happy that this one is the length it is because I think it's just long enough.
all right.
That it ends when I'm still very happy with it. But for whatever reason, I just didn't feel good about giving it a 10 out of 10. I'm really not sure why, and it might just be my internal comedy phobia. But that's me. So 9 out of 10.
When Noah laughs,
Yeah.
he freaks out.
I just
We
You know,
both
we-
know that's absolutely true.
Well, here's the thing, right?
It's not even a joke.
okay, so Jeff and I talked about, I can't remember if it was in the mini-sode. Jeff and I talked about how we really have issues actually watching or consuming media other people recommend to us sometimes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Comedies are the big one for me. So many people, when I say I don't really like comedies, they're like, "Oh, you just haven't seen
Napoleon
the one
Dynamite.
that I like." And you know what? I like Napoleon Dynamite, but I don't think it's that funny. I'm
I
not
was-
going to keep watching it.
I was forced
Yeah,
to
no
watch
one likes
Napoleon Dynamite.
It's
I-
fine.
I was forced to watch it by some boys I was babysitting who were aged 6 to 12. And they literally were like, all right, once we're done with dinner, you're going to sit with us and watch Napoleon Dynamite. They did the same thing with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy.
That's much better.
Well, that's a good move.
Yeah, but either way, there are so many movies that are like staples that I would not have seen if it weren't for these boys. And Napoleon Dynamite is definitely my least favorite out of them.
See, that's my
Yeah.
issue though. Like I watched Hot Rod and I thought Hot Rod was fine. And I saw Napoleon Dynamite and I thought it was fine. But my issue is every comedy people point me to, it's fine.
They're pointing you to some weird comedies, though.
They're pointing
Yeah,
me to
they
shit
are.
Hold on,
comedies,
though. I
firstly.
fucking love Hot Rod. That's such a good movie.
But I feel it, Noah, because like I have been told to watch Kevin Smith movies in general, but Clerks specifically, so many times.
I
I've
do
been
need to
told to watch
watch Clerks.
Empire Records. I have no desire to, despite the fact that one of the people who recommended Empire Records to me is someone that I respect very deeply and I love her sense of humor. But I'm scared. I don't want to watch it, and I could not tell you why, so I understand where you're coming from.
See, a friend of mine told me to watch The Black Coat's Daughter, saying it was one of the best movies that they had ever seen and that they heavily recommended that I check it out. And then I ignored them for 5 years.
3.
3 years.
I was gonna say, has it even been out for 5 years? But
Not
here's
quite.
here's the important thing, though, is that's why we're having this podcast, is so we can force each other to watch movies.
Yeah.
But that's also how I used dating Noah, was to force him to watch What We Do in the Shadows the first time.
It's true.
But yeah,
Is that the whole reason you started dating?
yes, that and Scott
Wow.
Pilgrim. I also made him watch that one.
I did enjoy Scott Pilgrim too.
Yeah, it's good.
It was fine.
Emma,
He didn't like
what's-
Hot Rod?
It was fine.
So, really, what I'm hearing is you need to watch the movie Eurovision, because that is peak comedy.
I don't know why, but Eurovision made me think of what's that Ben Stiller movie where he plays a model?
Zoolander?
Zoolander.
I don't know why, but Eurovision immediately conjured Zoolander to the front of my mind, not with the name, but I'm like, oh yeah, that's Eurovision, right?
See,
I
speaking
don't
of
know
comedies
why.
that we were afraid to watch, Zoolander is one of those ones that I was hearing about for like years, and then I watched it and I was like, well, I had already heard all the funny jokes from this.
Mm-hmm.
There's just
Yeah.
no point watching it
I-
at this point.
Carson made me watch it because it's her favorite comedy, and I had already heard all the jokes from her.
Yeah,
So all it did was lend context.
Yeah.
yeah,
Which
pretty much.
doesn't make it better.
It bolsters
not-
like
not
two
a
of the
lot.
jokes, but the others
what
are
is this?
perfectly
A-
fine with no
A
context.
blank for ants, very funny to me now that I get it, honestly.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
the one out of all of them
Or,
that I think
but
it
why
was
male
enhanced.
models? That one as well.
It's
Yeah,
very
anyway.
quotable.
Yeah, it's one of those
Um,
movies that like you want to have seen it, but you don't necessarily want to watch it.
Yeah. And I feel
Is
like
Anchorman the same
Napoleon Dynamite like fits in that context
Yeah.
as well, of like it's very quotable, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a great movie.
It's not fun to
But
watch.
we're
Yeah.
not here to talk about those movies.
No, we're here to
Although-
talk about your rating for this movie.
A quick aside, I do unironically very much love Eurovision. Would recommend.
Oh.
But
I will never watch it, but I'll take it into consideration.
Toss that
okay,
onto the
but
list.
my rating for What We Do in the Shadows is, I agree with Jeffy. It's gonna be a 9.3, and so
Out of 11?
9.3 out of 10, so a
Oh,
10
okay.
out of 11. I think that's how
Oh.
math works.
Quick
is that
I'm
how
math.
just
the math
guessing at
breaks
that
down?
number. I don't know the actual conversion. But
Nobody come at us for Emma's math here.
yeah, don't come at me for my math. I was a religion major, not a math major. But yeah, no, I have seen this movie so many times. I love it every time. It's really great. It spawned like a TV show that I really love. There's also, I don't know if you guys have heard about this. There's another TV show in Australia that follows the two cops that like come to visit their house in that one part. And
Amazing.
I've seen
Yeah.
like a couple episodes of that. It's not like you kind of have to go on the high seas for it, but it's really funny.
It is. And I did mention that to Noah while we were watching it, but I forgot it existed until this viewing.
Yeah.
And then I processed it and I was like, oh, I know those guys.
Yeah.
Wait, so it's
But-
just like a New Zealand cop show?
It's them, but they're like casually investigating all this supernatural stuff.
Oh,
And it's really funny.
okay.
But yeah, so I love this movie. It's spawned so much. It's what led me to like finding out about Taika Waititi before Thor Ragnarok. And
You got to be an OG fan instead
I
of
got
one of
to
those
be-
fake fans.
I got to be a fan before it was cool. And yeah, no, it's a fantastic movie. It's really great. Except I once showed it to this very pretentious religious friend that I used to have, and he
Oh.
hated it. And so if you're a pretentious religious person, you may not like it.
I can't imagine not liking this movie because it is unironically the best horror comedy I've ever seen
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it plays it straight enough and doesn't go for the lowbrow humor that a lot of horror comedies tend to lean into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not to hate on like what do you call Cabin in the Woods and Tucker and Dale. Those are great. I love those. But Scary Movie does exist. And it is 50% good and 50% the absolute tripe that I do not want to watch.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between like satire that like loves its source material and like it's kind of a love letter like Cabin in the Woods or Tucker and Dale or even What We Do in the Shadows, but like
For
something
Young
that
Frankenstein.
is
Mhm.
yeah, and something that is like genuinely making fun of the stuff that they're like
You know what, that might be it.
satirizing because like South Park I cannot stand for the reason that like 90% of the time the South Park clips I've seen have been the mean-spirited satirizing and not the
Yeah.
love letter satirizing. And I don't know if I'd even call What We Do in the Shadows necessarily a full satire because they do like they don't do that thing where there's like
There's no winking at the audience about get it because horror movies do this.
yeah, none of the
Right.
tropes are satirized so much as the lore is, but they use the lore in a very unique way
Mhm.
and they use it very genuinely.
Yeah, it's
like-
really just what if we were to take all of this and use it for comedy instead?
Yeah,
Mhm.
what if
That's
vampires
it.
were around in modern era and they weren't raging assholes?
Yeah.
Looks at Twilight.
It's like this could very well happen in the same universe.
Wait,
as-
actually, no. This is a super important question I have for Jeff
What?
about Twilight.
Oh my
Uh-oh.
god.
I think you're the one that's watched it the most recently. So
Probably.
I need filled in on this.
Sure.
The vampires glow in the sun or sparkle in the sunlight.
Uh-huh.
Yes. How does Edward get to school?
That's why they live in fucking
In Forks.
Washington or whatever,
Yeah.
because there's always clouds out, and on
That is
clear
the s-
days they straight up just don't.
They just
go
don't
to
go
school,
to school.
and they
Also-
make some sort of an excuse about it, and everybody is like, "Well, it's kind of weird they never show up when the weather's good, huh?" And then they don't ask any more questions.
Well, and the other thing is, I'm under the impression that the Cullens always show up kind of late to school as well, so that like maybe no one sees them walking in, from from what I can tell.
No,
'Cause-
the scene where they walk in is like a really big moment in the movie. So
Isn't it, like,
everybody
during
definitely
lunch,
sees
though?
them.
Nobody's
Uh,
seen them before lunch.
Shit, maybe it is.
Jeff, as
That's
our
so
resident
dumb.
Twilight expert,
Oh no, I haven't even seen
Why?
the third movie.
why?
Yeah, Jeff, why are you our
Just
resident
why?
Twilight expert?
Anyway.
You just said it's because I watched it the most recently.
Anyway, let's move through our trigger warnings because
Wait, what was
you
your
didn't rate the
rating?
movie.
Oh, my rating. Oh, it's a 10 out of 10. Easy.
All right.
Easy.
Easy 10 out of 10. Love Taika, love the humor, love vampires.
Yeah.
So yeah. Trigger warnings. This one's very easy. There's some slurs that are thrown around by characters. So if you have a sensitivity to that, I'm really
It
sorry.
happens once.
It happens. Yeah, I
Oh,
think
in one scene.
in one
It's-
scene.
It's a homophobic slur. I'm
it is a
sure you can
homophobic
guess
slur.
which one it is.
So yeah, it's unfortunate. That is one. And the other thing is, it's a vampire movie. There's a lot of blood. There's a lot of it.
There's a lot of blood.
It is almost always
Mhm.
comical.
Yes.
I would say that it is always comical, even.
I mean, with the ending of the
Oh,
movie,
no, I guess,
it's a
yeah,
little
no.
more traumatic. The first time
Yeah.
I watched it, I was like, "Oh my god, did they really do that?" So,
Me too.
Yeah, that's the only other thing.
I did forget about that part.
But yeah, no, those are the only two triggers for the most part. Not much else happens. It is a comedy. It's pretty lighthearted. So yeah.
If you were to look at the rating on the back of it, it probably would say for scenes of peril.
Yeah, it seems right.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
Nina, pass it to
What?
me. Pass
I'm
it over
okay.
here.
All right,
Oh,
passing
I'm
this
open.
one over to
I'm open.
Go!
I'm handing the phone to someone who's gonna give us their scary rating.
Emma, I'm here.
It's Emma.
I caught it. Okay. Great pass, Nina. Thanks so
Yeah,
much for
You're
that.
so welcome.
Of course, it's me, Emma, here for Emma's scary rating, the segment on the show that everybody looks forward to,
I know
and
I do.
loves unconditionally, just like me, except for my dad. So
Oh,
going into
getting dark.
going into the scary rating. Obviously, this is a movie about vampires. There's some werewolves in it. There's a lot of blood. There's some people getting bit. It's very scary. But I think the scariest part of this movie is a part that is just a real problem for a lot of us here in America. Because in America, especially with the younger generations, it's very very commonplace to have roommates, you know? And there's nothing scarier than bad roommates.
Yeah.
It's true.
And like there's a scene where it shows that one of the roommates hasn't been doing his roommate chores, and there's a mountain of bloody dishes. And that's like not clean. When they pan the camera over to that, I jumped and screamed. And then they also talk about how like the roommates weren't being courteous and putting down newspapers, and so it stained like the main guy's couch red because of all the blood, which real rude. And so it's just like a common like disrespect of their roommates' things. And that was too real for me, and that's why I give this a 10 out of 10 scary.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
I did jump once during this movie too.
You did.
It's
Did
the
you?
same
I
thing that
bet I
jumped
can
for the
guess
first
when
time.
it was. I can guess when it was.
Well, we're
It-
into the spoiler section, so tell me where you think it was.
I think it's when Viago is down in the basement giving like the ancient vampire the chicken.
Yep,
and
that's it.
And
And
he
he
wakes
wakes
up
up.
and he's like,
That's it.
yeah.
I love Peter so much. That's one of my favorite scenes is when Nick is telling Peter not to eat stew and Peter's just, or turn him into a vampire, and Peter's just nodding very sagely along with all the points being made.
Yeah. I like when he's telling the story about how he became a vampire And he's like this traveling salesman or whatever, or merchant, and there's a creepy castle off in the distance, and then suddenly this large bat descends on him and like drinks his blood and makes him drink his blood, and then it's like, "Ha! Now you are a vampire." And then it shows like him, and he's like, "And it was Peter, and we are still friends today."
Yeah. Or
The
when
deadpan
Nick is
delivery of
talking
so
about
many of those.
becoming a vampire, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this guy, he came in, he drank my blood, and then I woke up in his basement, and he offered me some of his blood, and I thought it was like a weird German thing, so I took it."
I love how much of that Nick just took in stride.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Poor Nick. Oh, he's such a jerk. But
But how about that spoilery summary?
I was actually just about to say, honestly, on a spoilery summary, there's not much. to
Okay,
say.
There's
so the
not much to
spoiler-
spoil. Spoil all the jokes.
is basically, as I said, there are these three roommates, Viago, Deacon, and Vlad, who live together. They're
There's
each
technically
from...
a fourth roommate, Nina.
Oh yes, and Peter, who lives in the basement and doesn't do much, but he does vibe with them. As
Peter's
we see.
8,000 years old. We're not
He's-
bringing him to the family meeting.
He's or to the he has some poor baby. He's very, very old and can clearly barely comprehend what's going on most of the time. But they are hanging out trying to get new victims, and one of these victims happens to escape their house and runs into Peter in the woods and gets turned into another vampire. And the story basically follows Nick, this new vampire, acclimating to the world, bringing a human into their lives. This human is named Stu. He's going to be a big topic of discussion today because he's the best. And then eventually going to this masquerade, bringing Stu with them. Things go very poorly. Stu ends up killing one of the vampires, and they all have to run off. They run into some werewolves on their way home. And they run into these werewolves at a very bad time. They're about to turn. It's a full moon. And though the werewolves are like, "Hey guys, if you stick around much longer, we are going to kill Stu," they don't turn and leave immediately, which does result in Stu. Initially, you think that Stu has been killed, but it's later revealed that Stu was turned into a werewolf and is now going to kind of make the werewolves be friendly with the vampires. And that's about how it goes. Stu is hands down one of the best, not just like characters, but like comedy devices in this
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
movie.
Can you tell us the Stu story?
Yeah, the Stu story, from my like memory of it, is that Stu is actually a light tech, that they happen to be, like, the creators of this movie happen to be friends with, and they put him in the movie. His name is actually Stu. That is his name.
Stu Rutherford.
Stu Rutherford. And he's a great dude. Everyone's really good friends with him. And then later on, when they were making Thor Ragnarok, Stu made this light rig for the scene where the Valkyrie are fighting Hela. And it's got this really cool, like, rotating light effect, and all the shadows are really neat. Stu is the guy behind that.
That's
Oh,
awesome. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, he is a very cool dude. They're good friends with him, and he just happened to be the best part of this movie.
Wow. All
He
right.
like had no acting experience. Taika told him not to take any acting classes or anything. They just put him in this movie, and he did not realize he was in the movie as much as he was until like the premiere.
Oh.
He's the best. All the characters in the film initially want to eat Stu, but Stu,
Because of his red
is it-
cheeks.
because of
clearly
his,
so full of blood.
his very ruddy cheeks, this guy.
I love that so much.
Um,
You're the reddest person we've ever met.
But they have self-control, and they all befriend him, and they do genuinely like him way more than they like Nick, the new vampire.
In fairness, Nick is a bit of a douchebag.
Nick seems to be a little bit of an ass, yeah.
Yeah.
This is like, Twilight? Twilight?
I'm
That's
Twilight.
Me.
I'm
I'm
Dracula.
the guy from Twilight.
I love how when he says stuff like that, Deacon is just like, well, you don't even know who Dracula is.
Deacon is so pissy. Oh, but they bond over their mutual
Deacon has a
friendship with
lot of
Stu.
nerve for being a Nazi vampire. He's got a lot of nerve being pissy about anything.
Oh my god.
Which is a thing I love, how they just casually sprinkled in. He's like, yeah,
love to
so
see
I
what he
actually
talks
worked with the Nazis in World War II. And you know, if you were a Nazi, bad.
Ooh.
If you were a vampire, bad. But if you were a Nazi vampire,
Get outta here.
they
So I had to
hated
get
you.
out of it.
It's just like, oh man, dude, I wonder why they hated you, you Nazi vampire bitch.
And then he just doesn't wash the dishes for 5 years.
Oh my
As
gosh.
though he couldn't get worse.
Vampires don't do dishes. And it's like, dude, what?
Well,
what-
some of them
Firstly,
do.
how do they generate dishes?
That's
I
a question.
love how
It seems like it's just a stack of brandy glasses, right?
it's that, but it's also
They
like
can't eat.
it's every plate that they try and serve canned spaghetti on.
Be better if it was warm.
It's like, Stu, so you're eating worms. How do you like eating worms? And he's just like,
He just
Huh?
like looks at the
He's
fry.
like
what do
eating-
you do?
he's
The thing?
eating
Oh, it
French
doesn't work
fries.
on chips.
It only
He's like,
works with
"It's
things that already look
past-
like worms.
Oh, the fact that he's just so put off by the fact that nothing's going his way, that he tries to hypnotize his best friend. Rude, really. That says a lot
Yeah.
about his character. Speaking of Stu, every time I watch this movie, the scene where Stu stabs the beast lover with the table leg, every time it pans over to him and he's just got that giant table leg in his hands, I'm like, my heart
Is that what
just
that
like
was?
gives,
It was a table leg?
yeah, it just gives a little flutter, you know? I'm like, ooh, that's a real man. Don't worry, no, you're not threatened. I would not leave you for a light tech.
Thanks for not
I think
leaving me
he's-
for Stu Rutherford.
But it
another
would not be a bad move for you, Noah, if you were to go impale a vampire.
No, it wouldn't.
No, yeah.
No, I wouldn't be unhappy if
Man,
you did that.
When the vampire hunter crashes into the basement and R.I.P. kills Peter, I love how they're examining his wooden stakes and they're like, "What are these? Table legs?"
Do you
"Oh,
think he
yeah."
hand sanded that?
They just sanded
Oh,
those
for
down.
sure.
They're just like mocking the hell out of him. I love it. He deserves it. He looks like a lumberjack.
He does look like a
He
lumberjack.
does.
Hey, mate, I'm a vampire. Oh, really? I'm a vampire hunter. No, get off. No, I'm serious. You're funny. Here, email me sometime.
Yeah. I thought he was
He's
joking.
like, I'll Skype you later.
I'll Skype you later. He probably just followed them home.
Probably.
Uh, I love how so other fun facts about the cast making this. Obviously there's Taika Waititi, who
course.
is a great director, very cool dude. He's been the basis of a lot of awkward discussions that I've had with people for multiple reasons.
Mhm.
But the biggest thing is that he's not the only important person on this cast. There's also Jermaine Clement, who is
Love
part of
him.
the comedy duo Flight of the
Fantastic.
Conchords.
Yep.
And he also voices the crab in Moana.
Oh.
Very important.
Yeah, I love that. Like, Jermaine Clement has like gotten a lot of acting credits to his name now, and he's been in a lot of stuff. But always when you introduce him, you just say, "Oh, he was one of the Flight of the Conchords guys."
Well, it is his
His
to
claim
me
to fame.
it's the first time I ever experienced any Jermaine Clement stuff was Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah.
And that's why whenever people are surprised that he can sing, it's like, I mean, he was part of like a musical comedy duo, so I
Yeah.
don't know why you're shocked.
He's great.
I mean, I don't think that Andy Samberg can really sing, but he's in a whole ass band. So
Okay,
Well.
you got me there.
Yeah.
But Jermaine Clement plays Vlad the Poker,
poker.
Vladislav
the Poker.
Man, I love Vladislav.
which is it's an obvious like play on Vlad the Impaler, but it leads to some pretty good gags, and also he's I think the oldest out of the main three. Like Peter's obviously 8,000, but
Mhm.
Vlad is 862 years old, Viago is 379, and Deacon is only 183.
Only 183.
He's the
which
young,
makes
like,
him-
bad boy of the group.
Man, I love how they marketed him as that. You know, that's why he was pissed off at Nick, because Nick was a better bad boy of the group.
Yeah. He actively got someone killed twice. Both times by just being an idiot, just by being himself. So good
Yeah.
for him. He didn't even have to try. Deacon tries too hard is the problem.
It's true. I love
I-
Deacon's coat though.
His MCR coat.
Oh, yeah,
no, not
yeah.
that one, the fur one.
Oh.
His MCR coat's funny, but the fur one that makes him like 3 times as wide as he was looks like he's got a head on each shoulder, but it's just fur. So good.
So obviously we all love the characters, but I think one of the best things about this movie is how, as we previously were talking about, it uses vampire, werewolf, even zombie lore in a really fresh way. It's got the staples. It's got the can't go out in the sunlight, gotta drink blood. And then it brings back some less known ones, like transforming into different animals, not just bats.
Yeah.
One of the characters, Vlad, he used to be really good at that. But now he can't get the faces right.
That's so fun. You know, there's a deleted scene where he transforms his nipples into eyeballs.
Why would they take that out?
I don't know, but he's like talking to Viago and he's got these big eyes on his chest just like staring at him.
Yeah,
I
there
didn't watch
there was
it, I just saw
apparently
the
they shot
thumbnail.
like 120 something hours of footage for this, and the editing
my God.
process
That
took
makes
like a
sense.
year just to
That makes
cut it down
sense.
to a single movie's worth of material.
Nina and I were talking about how much we loved all the Polaroids and how long it must have taken them to do that. We were anticipating like, you know, a day or two of them just posing and taking pictures. Now I feel like it was probably a lot more.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's
and
tough
this
to tell.
isn't their first take on this movie either. There was a shorter version under the same title, What We Do in the Shadows, that's from a few years before,
Oh,
Mhm.
that I think was just Jermaine and Taika. I'm pretty sure, but I don't remember for sure. So it makes sense. It seems like it's a very like big kind of passion project for the two of them.
Mhm.
And they absolutely killed it. The shape changing, there's in the series, which I again recommend, there's a character who insists that the best way to turn into a bat is to yell bat before you turn into the bat. And he's my favorite character. I love him so much. But yeah, no. There's more fun stuff, like not being able to wear silver. Viago's human love interest gives him a silver locket, and he proudly puts it on and displays it for the documentary crew while the silver is burning into his skin and you see him start to smoke.
I love that so much.
There's the fact that they're not allowed to eat anything, which they freaking Nick eats one french fry and everyone
Yeah.
else is like, oh, Nick, you don't want to do that, buddy. And he's like, why not? Why the fuck not? And then it cuts to him just absolutely spewing a fountain of blood out of his freaking throat.
Yeah.
It's-
It's like they just put a hose
Legitimately.
in his mouth.
I love that so much. That was it's
literally the only time vomit has ever made me laugh in one of these movies. I feel like Family Guy really thinks vomit's funny, but they can't pull it off the way that this movie does.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me
Definitely.
of that one episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where
Mhm.
Charlie eats a bunch of fake blood capsules because he doesn't realize you're not supposed to swallow them.
Mhm.
And the scene plays out pretty much the same way. They put like a blood hose into his mouth and it just shoots out.
It's very good.
Very,
I wonder-
very good.
Because, like, it's been a few years since I've heard that they're working on a sequel to this movie called We're Wolves.
Yeah.
But I wonder where, like, they're at in the production or filming of that. Or, like, what's going on with it.
Yeah.
Oh
Because
my
I haven't
gosh.
heard anything for a while.
Yeah, I didn't even remember that until you said it. The werewolf lore is a little less prevalent. The werewolves are a just another group of paranormal creatures that lives on this island of New Zealand, and they're just there hanging out. They're a group of people with one really try-hard alpha who have all of their own little things going on.
I love how they all dress the same. They all have like the
Yeah.
same kind of khakis and jackets and flannels.
Yep, they
and
all
after
dress the
Stu
same.
gets turned, he starts dressing like that, and he starts like acting all confident suddenly. Like
I do honestly. I love Stu's character shift once he becomes a werewolf, and he's just like
right.
a lot higher energy, and he's just like, "Hey, how you guys doing?"
Yeah, it's literal puppy dog energy, and I love how easily he fits into that group. Like, there are members of that group that have been there way longer than him that just are still not really sure why they do the things they do. Like, the alpha makes a joke, and he's talking about how when he makes a joke, they all laugh, and sometimes he'll test them by being, "Hey, why are you laughing?" And they have to tell him, and the guy's like, "Oh, I actually don't know why we're laughing." He's like, "Okay, Stu, why are we laughing?" And Stu's like, "Oh, I was just laughing with the group." He's like, "There you go. That's a good answer."
Yeah, I had no idea like that this movie actually had a post-credit scene
Mhm.
until this viewing.
Really?
Oh,
Um,
whack.
Yeah, like I just never looked. And I don't think I
I-
had seen any of the like scenes in the credits either.
Oh wait, there's a full blown post credit scene.
Yeah, like
we
after
don't-
all
I
the
didn't
credits.
stick around for that.
I don't remember it. What is it?
I don't
I don't know.
remember.
We're so good at this. Yeah,
Are
here
you
we are.
are you looking it up?
Noah is looking it up. That's
Not WandaVision. Fuck you, WandaVision. I'm so over WandaVision.
Wow.
I don't care how good it is. I don't care how many people like it. I never want to see a single thing from it again. I am so done. Oh my gosh.
we
Wow.
interrupt
Anyway.
this what we do in the shadows. Speaking of which,
But Mephisto, Noah.
talking about
Mephisto's doing this to me.
talking about
Of
Taika
course.
Waititi and Thor Ragnarok. I had seen What We Do in the Shadows before Thor Ragnarok. I had not seen any of Taika's other movies, which I think at the time there weren't many. But Emma and I watched Hunt for Wilder People together, and it's really sweet
Did
and
we?
funny as well. Didn't we? Wasn't it you that I watched that with?
I don't think so.
Dang, who did I watch it with?
Oh, the post credit scene is just Deacon looking into the camera and hypnotizing us into forgetting the last hour and a half.
Yeah,
Nice.
that was my joke of saying I don't remember when you asked me what it was.
Oh.
Well, I damn, I didn't
Nice.
know. I thought you just forgot already. And I'm like, damn, it must not have been that
Now we've
funny.
explained the joke for everybody else who didn't stick around for the scene.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, there you go,
apparently
audience.
it
Now you
wasn't-
know.
apparently it wasn't Emma that I watched Hunt for Wilder People with, but I would highly recommend it to anyone who wants to watch it. It was fun. I could have sworn it was Emma, but now I'm
it
going
might have been, and
by.
I might just not remember. I don't know.
Huh.
Maybe Deacon made me forget.
Oh,
He made you
Deacon,
forget the
that
wrong movie.
Scallywag. Yeah. What was I gonna say? You guys go. I need a minute.
Okay. So for my other famous segment that I haven't done in a while, how does this movie make me think of sharks? So
I am
very
fascinated at how
interested to
this
see
is
the
going to go.
it's very simple. Sharks like blood. This movie likes blood. Therefore, this movie is like sharks. Thank you
You're
for your
correct.
time. In this essay, I will no. That's
I
one of
was-
like my favorite memes is just like kind of giving a thesis statement in a tweet or something and then being like, in this essay, I will. And
I
then
love
ending
that
it.
too. I
It's
also
so
love
good.
saying everything in 3 sentences and ending it with "Thank you for coming to my TED Talk."
Yeah, that's a good one too. You definitely use that one a lot.
What was I gonna say? Oh, familiars. Familiars are used more in the show than I think they are in this movie. But one of the best like mechanics they use is the idea of familiars. There are 2 familiars in this show. Jackie, a mother of at least 2, I don't know if she has more kids, who really wants to be a vampire and is getting sick of Deacon, who is her vampire like overseer master or whatever. because he said that he would turn her into a vampire, and then he's walking back on that the more that she asks him.
That's kind of like a common thread between the movie and the show of like vampires taking on these people and promising them like, oh, for your service, I'll turn you into a vampire. And then they never do it.
That's a common thing in vampire stories in general, actually. That's a Dracula thing. That's a 30 Days a Night thing as well.
Okay.
And what I love is the common thread of other people being turned into vampires by accident while the familiar is waiting for it. And that happens in the TV show as well. The main POV character in the TV show is a familiar named Guillermo, and I love him.
He's such a good boy.
He is such a good boy. He's wanted to be a vampire his whole life. And he finally gets the chance to, and then he makes some upsetting discoveries that may change his plans. So he's such a good character. 10 out of 10. Jackie, on the other hand, screw her. She's kind of bad at her job. So unlike Guillermo, who's kind of bumbling and messes things up by accident sometimes, Jackie is like deliberately malignant sometimes. She's like, oh yeah, no, I totally thought these two were virgins. It's like, great job, Jackie.
It's fitting the kind of treatment the Deacon is giving her, to be fair.
That's fair.
Also, I love how
You're
she's
right.
so blatantly just using it as an excuse to kill people who annoy her.
Yeah.
It is so good.
Yeah, you remember you gave me this mean nickname. No, yeah, that was you.
Oh, that was you.
No, yeah, you were the one that started that. No one else said it until you did. No, yeah, you gave me the worst nickname of my life. Anyway, dinner.
Oh, I'm actually genuinely happy for her that she gets to be a vampire and she doesn't have to wait any longer, because she's right. She is kind of in her prime as far as waiting any longer. So
Yeah.
unlike Viago's familiar, Philip, who also did a terrible job.
Philip, listen, you paid the wrong postage. It took me a very long time to get here.
When are
He's
you
like-
coming back?
I love how they both deflect, because he's like, oh, but didn't you say you were going to turn me into a vampire? And it's like, that's not answering the question, Philip. Anyway, goodbye. Have a good life. Bye-bye.
I love when he's just like, I haven't done anything with my life. I was waiting for you. And it's like, why?
Buddy.
Why didn't you go with him?
Yeah, right?
If you were
If
so
you
he's
ship
not
him there in a
coming
box,
back.
what's he gonna do when he arrives?
Yeah.
How's
Also,
he gonna
I
figure
really
that
do
out?
like Deacon seems to be the only one with a familiar. The other two just kind of seem to be coasting along, which, you know
Yeah.
what? It almost offsets the fact that Deacon doesn't do any household chores.
Deacon is also the one who talks about trying to get some slaves to do the work for them, right?
No, that was Vlad.
That was
Oh, was that
Vlad.
Vlad?
Because
Oh,
they're
okay.
like, he has some old school thinking. He's like, we should get some slaves. And they're just like, no, Deacon. Or
That's-
No,
That's
no,
another
shouldn't.
thing that I love about this movie that other vampire media really slacks on, in my opinion, is showing how vampires would adjust to a modern world. Like,
Yeah.
Viago openly admits to just not paying attention to technology and like being surprised at how far it's come, while he's just kind of like blinked and missed it.
Mhm.
Versus the Cullens in Twilight, who are somehow perfectly up to date, have no out of date ideas, despite the fact that one of them was a literal Confederate soldier.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing about this, because I think there's a difference between adult vampires and teenage vampires.
That's a
Because
good point.
teenage vampires have to keep up with the times a lot more, I
gotta
think,
seem
in
young,
order
yeah.
to successfully hunt.
Mhm.
Maybe that's
Whereas
why they were in
adult
high school all
vampires
the time.
don't have to. Huh?
Do you think that's why they kept going back to high school? So they would always be in touch with
Like
what
up
the
to
young kids
date?
were doing. They'd always be up to date
I
on
think that
everything.
makes sense. I've never seen Twilight, so
You're
I
all
don't know.
forgetting a really
What's the
crucial
answer in Twilight,
point.
Lord Jeff?
A really crucial point here that you guys are all forgetting is that Vlad is 16 in human years.
Yeah,
I-
but he's
I
like
don't
an
believe
old
that for a
16.
second. And like, he's just like,
Well,
well,
life was hard
Passes
back
as
then.
an
I'm
old
16.
man.
But it was rough for 16-year-olds back then. It's like, yeah, it was so rough that 16-year-olds look like 57, but whatever.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, the Cullens all have different like ways to stay involved in the world that they live in. So there is that. They all kind of deliberately do stay involved in things, which for vampires who don't really want to be involved with human society, because all of them kind of bitch at Edward for like none of them have human friends, and then when
Yeah.
Edward like makes a human friend, they all get pissed. It's like, well, then just don't go outside.
Well, just don't go to
You
high
eat
school.
animals.
Like, why are you there? It doesn't. There's so much about Twilight that doesn't make any sense. This is not a Twilight episode.
No, it's a What We Do in the Shadows does a good job of doing some of that stuff.
Someday we'll talk
Right.
about Twilight, I'm sure.
I would love to talk about Twilight.
No.
We'll get there
Not on
eventually.
this podcast. We'll have a
It's
special
horror
Twilight podcast.
adjacent. Dead and Lovely does Harry Potter every year.
They do Harry
We're not
Potter
dead
every
and
year.
lovely, are we?
No, we're
No.
not.
No,
We are
Emma already
neither
thought I
dead
was
nor-
pushing the envelope with this movie, so we got
Yeah. Because, like, in reality, I don't consider this a scary movie at all.
No.
Well, the
Despite what
horror
I
isn't
said
scary.
in my
in your
horror
scary
corner,
rating.
in my scary rating. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry for lying to you, audience, but I just think this is just kind of like a comedy, like set with vampires.
Yeah, it's a comedy.
but I
that's
don't
utilizing
consider it like
some-
scary or horror at all.
And honestly, horror comedy is a really interesting genre for that reason, because a lot of it isn't super scary. I think
No.
Cabin in the Woods, to me,
Cabin in the Woods is
is-
scary.
is the only one that I've actually found scary from the horror comedies I've watched.
Kind of scary.
I didn't. Find it
Honestly,
scary, but
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. This is gonna be a real vulnerable moment for me, and I need you guys not to laugh at me or judge me. Okay, if we could just go around and all of you promise me that you won't make fun of me
Noah's literally
Um,
already laughing.
before I say what I'm about to
Noah.
say.
Yeah, cross my
Um,
heart.
Okay,
I'll do my
Noah, can you
best.
promise me?
I'm sorry. I'm already laughing.
Noah, can you promise me that you're not gonna make fun of me for what I'm about to
I don't know that I
say?
can.
Noah, can you please? I need you to promise me. You can't judge me.
Okay.
Jeff, are you cool?
I'll do my best.
Okay. I've never finished Scary Movie 2 because it scared me too much.
I've never watched those movies.
Oh, you're
so I
so
don't-
valid.
Okay. So I was getting ready for you to say like the first time you watched Cabin in the Woods it scared you or something.
Cabin in the Woods did scare me.
But like, and I was gonna give you a pass on that because as has been documented across 2 different podcasts now, I was very scared by the Jekyll and Hyde segment on the library card episode of Arthur. However, don't laugh at me. I was afraid to go in our garage, Jeff. I was afraid to go in that alone for years. It was
I'm
very
aware.
weird. I didn't. What the hell? Anyway,
It's funny.
yeah, but Emma,
You promised.
I
you
said
promised.
sure.
Anyway, no, that makes sense though. But some like Tucker and Dale, I did not find scary. I found it kind of gross.
Oh, yeah,
there's
it's got some
deaths.
I
gross
mean, you do
moments for
toss
sure,
a
but
man
it's
into
not-
a wood
Yeah,
chipper.
there's some
It's not
deaths that are kind of
scary.
gross. I don't. On the other hand, of horror comedy, you have Get Out, which I don't trust people who found Get Out to be really funny. Like
I don't
It
know why
never
people
even
put it as a
occurred
horror
to me to
comedy.
consider it to be a comedy. Like
that's how it's just because Jordan Peele made it. It was pitched to me as a comedy, but there's
That's the
one
only-
comic relief character, and that's very common in just horror movies in general.
Yeah.
It is not
that's-
anyone who says like and stands by that it's a horror comedy is just thinking of Jordan Peele.
Mhm.
There
Yeah,
are funny
that's-
moments in it, but it is more of a drama horror movie than anything else. It is not. What other points are okay? Never mind. MMA Kid was kind of funny. Okay, he was pretty funny.
Yeah,
just because we
I-
know that guy.
I
Yeah,
I think this like
my upstairs neighbor.
That's
there
him.
are certain people who haven't experienced the things that Get Out is satirizing who find the dad character to be harmlessly funny in the beginning, but to people who
He would have
have
voted for
experienced
Obama
that
3 times,
it-
Nina.
yeah, but to people who have experienced that, like and I won't say how I have, but I have. It's like it is uncomfortable as heck,
Mhm.
whether you're the person whose parents were like that and you had to like be there with your friends while your parents were acting like that, or you're the person in that situation where it's like way freaking worse, where you're like, I can't say anything about this, I have to just kind of put up with it, you know. So people who find that kind of stuff funny, like, obviously it's meant to be a tongue in cheek, but people who think that's hilarious, I don't really trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different horror comedy things out there that like
I think my like perception of the horror genre is a bit skewed because my thought is horror movies are the scary movies. And if
Like
they're
Scary
not
Movie 2.
scary, not like Scary Movie 2, yes. To be fair, I have a lot of religious trauma. The like exorcism parody scene at the beginning with the little girl really freaked me out right off the bat. That's all I'm saying. But
that's super valid.
but like if it relies more on comedy, then I don't think it's gonna be like scary at all, and I no longer consider it like horror. I consider it just like a comedy movie that's like using elements of scary movies just to make it funnier, if that makes sense. But
Yeah. No, and I totally do get that, but I think that there's sort of a position where it's like, would I show this to someone who had like no experience with horror, was scared of everything, and you know, liked general comedies? I probably still would, but I know that when I
Yeah.
first watched this, I was in my I don't really like horror at all stage. And I found this movie genuinely like scary at points. Specifically, and I know that we talked about this in the beginning, but specifically when Stu died. The first time I watched this movie, I didn't finish it because I got like terrified when Stu died. I was like, no, they can't freaking kill. This is another part of why I don't like slashers, is I can't get attached to any characters because they'll just die.
That's why you get attached to Jason.
I'm not a simp like your sister.
You know, I hate
Anyway,
to break it to you, but whether a character dies in the story or not, they do stop existing once the movie is over.
shut up,
So getting
Jeff.
attached
That's
to them
kinda like
still
dying.
doesn't do you any favors.
Shut up, Jeff. Jeff, shut up. Jeff? Hey, Jeff?
Yeah.
Shut up. Anyway, look, not to be a 220 to expose myself for being on Tumblr in 2014.
Whoa.
What is that sentence?
Yeah, no, that got away from me. But not to expose myself for being on Tumblr in 2014.
Whoa.
But a lot of like fan fiction-y stuff really banks on the character still being alive by the end of the story. So
Oh,
I
you
rest
just want to
my
write
case.
fan fictions. I gotcha.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Of course.
You guys should totally go on Archive of Our Own and find my non-existent What We Do in the Shadows fan
Last time I
fiction.
was on there, I was looking for Ben Shapiro. So I
2014
think I'm good.
2014 Nina was so pure and innocent
2014
comparatively.
Nina.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but the movie was definitely one that like I would not like show someone who's into comedies but not into horror as much personally. That is my personal line that I draw, but I understand it for other people. This doesn't even kind of fall into horror at all. Also, as discussed with gothic horror, it has a lot of horror tropes in it. So to me, I feel like it does fall into it a little bit. I think it's worth discussing.
Yeah.
Noah.
Wait, did you say this falls under gothic horror?
Oh no, I don't think this
Ooh.
falls under gothic
Okay,
horror.
I was
This
like,
is hardline gothic horror. Classic gothic horror.
Not as
I mean,
much
it
as
has-
Crimson
Twilight is.
Peak, get
I was
out
like,
of here.
isn't part of the thing that they don't show a lot of blood in gothic horror?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, this movie in my opinion, has characters that would do very well in gothic horror if they were taken seriously.
Now, if we had taken bare-ass Tom Hiddleston and replaced him with any of the three main vampires,
I would have loved
God,
that.
which one
Can
would have
you
been funniest?
imagine?
Viago's Peak. I think Viago would be the funniest just because
Viago-
he's so awkward.
Viago
Deacon
is a baby.
would be too sleazy.
hmm
Yeah.
I think Viago would successfully be able to woo Edith. Like, I think she'd totally fall for him. He's a charmer.
Yeah.
Actually, no,
You know-
I just want to replace the incest relationship with Viago bringing her back and then trying to hide the fact that he has his two flatmates that also live there.
And behind the scenes, he's constantly just trying to convince Deacon and Vlad to stay out of the way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they don't
there it
want
is.
to,
That's-
of
that's-
course.
Nina,
That's
can
the
you
show.
write this fanfic, please?
Yeah, I'll do it. We will
Oh.
call it Viago's Peak, or let's call it Wellington Peak because they live
There
in
you go.
Wellington.
Okay. Yeah,
The
calling it
Wellington Peak.
Viago's Peak has a different meaning.
That sounds like
Viago's
something else.
Peak is the one that Jeff's going to be writing.
That one you have to purchase.
Dead
That one you have
silence.
to purchase online. It's very spicy.
Anyway,
from his
hit our
OnlyFans.
Kickstarter. If we get fully funded, I will write that.
Don't see. Unfortunately, I can be coerced into writing things from one-off jokes. History has shown it, and I cannot promise that this will not happen. But
Oh, yeah.
I learned my lesson
Vlad
after
said
promising too much
suggestively.
the first time I wrote a fan fiction.
It was a good one, though.
it
It was
was.
so good.
Thank you. Thank you.
But to go back one more time to horror elements in this, I think when something is the last thing is when something is specifically parodying some pretty well-known horror movies, such as Interview with a Vampire. I think you can also kind of pull it into a discussion about horror at that point. Also, we haven't mentioned Interview with a Vampire this entire podcast, and I'm really sorry to have to break that streak now.
I've never
Uh,
actually watched it.
Same.
It's
okay.
fine. I read the book when I was in high school.
It's just Brad
And-
Pitt being a sad boy.
It's
And then
really
Tom Cruise being incredibly gay.
No,
there's a
he's
couple
very straight.
there's a couple jokes in this movie that are aimed kind of directly at Interview with a Vampire, and I think the
Little bit.
most obvious one is Viago and his girlfriend, who is a 96-year-old woman, and he's like, some people might get on me for the age difference. They're like, what is this 93-year-old woman doing with a man 4 times her age? They can call me Cradle Snatcher, I don't care. Which
It's
to
just
me is
so wholesome and pure.
so cute. To me, that's a dig at Interview with a Vampire for turning a literal child into a vampire and then having her be like this like frustrated woman in her like adulthood who is
Yeah.
not taken seriously by the men around her, which has always been really icky about that story to me. So least favorite thing about Interview with a Vampire, apart
I
from
mean,
Anne
it is
Rice's
kind of
terrible copyright
condemned by the
practices.
other vampires in the story, to be fair. That doesn't
Yeah,
make
no.
it okay. It still shouldn't have happened. There's no need for that in the story. But at
Yeah,
least
no.
the other characters have the decency to condemn that behavior.
The behavior of turning a child into a vampire, I
Yeah.
think, is the most condemned part, because I don't think she should be condemned as a character for being a little shit
It's
when
not
she's
her
been
fault.
through everything she's been through.
It's really not her
Uh,
fault. No.
Justice for
It's
I
gay
think her
Tom
name's Claudia.
Cruise's fault.
It is. It's gay Tom Cruise's fault.
If he had been a little less gay,
No.
maybe this wouldn't have happened.
If he would have been a
That's
little
the
more
takeaway.
gay,
If
actually.
he had been a little more gay, if he would, it would have just been happy with what he had.
Never.
We
Yeah.
need
In-
him
in
to be
Brad
little
Pitt.
Nas levels of gay.
Yes.
Man, real quick, I adore that music video. Jeff, have you watched it yet?
No, I've been.
Call Me By
I
Your
only
Name
just
video?
today saw that people are angry about it for some reason.
Just
It-
the visual of him pole dancing his way straight to hell is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I think
Guess I'm
the
gonna have to
funniest,
watch that
Love it.
video now.
the
Need
funniest
to watch
part
it.
to me is how close he is to getting into heaven, and they're just openly rejecting it for the chance to strip down into hell.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's
Good for
so
him.
good.
I like have not. So obviously I know who Little Nas is,
Mhm.
but I didn't like Old Town Road, and so I've just kind of like been like love him as a personality, not really into his music.
Valid.
But
Mhm.
We all love a
the
gay
song
cowboy
was a
aesthetic.
banger. I liked it.
It is a banger.
It's
Mhm.
really good.
I was neutral about Old Town Road,
I love
but I
it.
love this song. And I've been extremely neutral about most of his other songs, except for the one with the music video where he was a vampire. Genuinely enjoyed that
I don't
one.
remember what that one was.
Me
I thought that
neither.
was in the Panini video,
No.
but now I don't remember.
I don't remember what it is either. Anyway, Lil Nas, also striking feature of the vampire community, as I have just mentioned.
Yeah.
He had more of a Lost Boys thing going on. Oh, they also openly reference Lost Boys in this movie, which I think is
Yeah.
hilarious.
I do love that. We got that trick from Lost Boys.
So we put a little flair on it. Hello, your penis is also a snake.
I love how
that. The way that as he's walking out, he's like, "These freaks turn my penis into a snake. That's not cool."
I love that so much. Like they say that like they're being so cool and creative, and it's like you're eating worms, ha ha, and then it's your penis is a snake, ha ha. It's, they took the joke and then they dropped it on the floor, and they're
It's
like,
just-
"That's it."
It's so dumb.
I feel like some of these jokes in this movie are like pretty freaking good in their like level of the amount of writing it must have taken to get them to where they were, and
Uh-huh.
other ones are just like there's some good setup and payoff, like the some good visual gags, like that he can't get the face right anymore, and then a little while later there's like this cat that just straight up has Jermaine Clement's face
That's
on
his
it.
face on it.
Jokes like the beast that take so much time to set up, but
It
in my
takes
opinion,
so
are
long to
one
get
of,
there with that
Half
one.
the movie, it's just like the beast, and then we get there, and it's just like she walks up, and it cuts back to Vladislav, and he's like, "The beast is the name I gave to my ex."
I
One
love
of
when he confronts her and he's like beast and she's like asshole.
He's like, "Don't call me that."
She's
She's
like,
like,
"Don't
"Don't
call
call
me
me the
that."
beast."
I
Oh
wish
my
I had
God.
an ex I hated that I could call the Beast. But I
You know,
don't.
Just
I
like
just
the
have the one cool ex.
I mean, I bet
Mm.
she'd let
Well,
you
that
call
sucks.
her the beast if you asked nicely.
Let me ask. I'll message her.
Um,
Hey, do you mind if I give you a really awful nickname and start shit talking you to people for fun?
Come on, be cool.
what was I gonna say? Yeah, and then there are other jokes that are like, what if your dick turned into a snake? With it pretty messed up, right? Which barely uses any vampire lore. It uses hypnotism very loosely, whereas a lot of the other hypnotism stuff is like jokes about freaking Vlad's loss of ability to hypnotize.
Well, she can't see
Or-
me at this angle, so
see me.
Or Viago, who is self-admittedly bad at hypnotism.
I'm very bad at hypnotism, so it could wear off at any minute. Hey, wait, what's that?
no,
No
smoke
smoke
detectors.
What's that? Adhesive right underneath a lantern, right underneath a power box. That's a fire waiting to happen. And look, no smoke alarms here either.
I love how when they
And,
first point out the
Deacon's
smoke alarms, Vlad is
Deacon's
like
like-
holding on to Nick's legs and he's just like, yeah.
I love the line, one of my favorite lines in this whole movie, and one that you see on the internet all the time, is like, we can't kill the cops, they'll bring more cops, and then possibly Christians, which is totally the last thing we need in this house.
Yeah.
I love that.
There's not a lot of Christian imagery in this movie for all that one-off line. There's like one time, they'd say
Oh,
that
so
the-
you only see the crucifix once.
with Deacon, and you know that the crew has that's another one of my favorite things, is that they are like, oh yeah, the crew has crucifixes, and a lot of other people get commented on, like the fact that there's humans around with like Stu is commented on a lot. And that's one thing I like more about the TV show is there are more comments made about the camera crew being
Like
around.
when they show up to the secret society meeting and the camera crew is ignored until they realize Stu is there and is a human. And
Yeah.
they're like, and you brought this camera crew and that's not okay.
Yeah, no, that's like maybe my one big problem with this movie is that the camera crew, like, it has a better conceit for being a mockumentary than Hell House did, but
Yeah.
it does not follow through. I would say in the movie, but in the TV show, the camera crew is remarked on a lot. I think one of them is killed and eaten at one point.
Oh.
Yeah, which happens in this movie. I'm pretty sure that one of the camera crew gets taken out by the werewolves
For the
as well.
werewolves,
Yeah.
Because crucifixes can't help you against some angry boys. But yeah, that's like the one thing that maybe I like that they mentioned that the crew has crucifixes and as like a throwaway line as to why they're not getting trouble.
Yeah.
But it is a throwaway line in the end, and I wish they'd played with that a little more. But I'm glad that they do it in the show.
I do really like when Vlad and Deacon are examining the dead vampire hunter, and they're like talking really casually, and then suddenly they go, "Oh, the crucifix! Cover the crucifix!" and they cover it up really quick, and then they go right back to just calm, casual talking about everything. that
Perfect
they're
transition in that scene. It's perfect.
Oh, it's so good because it really is just like they're vampires, so like they're used to it.
Actually, speaking of them being vampires, I love the
That's
different
the
vampire
movie.
representation that we got throughout this, right? You got
Mhm.
your goth alt vampires when they were walking around the city. You got our main three, well, Deacon and Viago feel like the same kind of vampire stereotype.
Yeah,
Then there's Vlad, who's the Dracula type.
of course.
And then you got Peter, who's like Nosferatu. and it's just like, that guy can't ever leave
And like
the
he
house.
doesn't even
Poor
have a
guy.
normal casket to sleep in. He has like the stone tomb.
Big stone tomb under in the basement.
Each of them is a parody for an actual, because like Viago's a kind of parody to kind of Interview with a Vampire style, like gothic vampires. I'd say
Oh,
that
yeah.
Deacon's more of a Lost Boys kind of type. Vlad's Dracula and Peter is Nosferatu. And it's like, that's really cool to me that like the main four. And then there's Nick.
Oh
who
shit! That
is
means
very
Nick actually
Twilight.
is Twilight.
He actually is
Yes.
Twilight.
Twilight.
I'm Twilight. You know I'm Twilight.
I'm Twilight. No, Nick, you're
I'm
not
Dracula.
Twilight.
You don't even know Dracula.
Which
You
is
don't
the
even know
like
who
direct
Dracula
parody
is.
of each of their storylines kind of also follows their the plot line that their characters would have in other movies.
Mhm.
Like
Oh, yeah.
Viago's is all about his lost love, like that he like pines after, but he wants her to be happy. He's the hopeless romantic. Deacon's just a playful bad boy. And Nick is fine with declaring to anyone and everyone he meets that he's a vampire, which gets him into trouble.
He loved being a vampire for like 10 minutes, and as soon as
'Cause he
he
could
found out that he
fly.
couldn't eat fries anymore, he's like, being a vampire sucks. What's the point of life if I can't eat chips anymore?
Which is
They're my
literally-
favorite food.
Literally Edward Cullen when trying to convince Bella not to be a vampire. He's just like, being a
You can't
vampire is
eat
terrible.
anymore.
You wouldn't even know. It's like, what are you? Are you even human anymore? And Bella's like, I don't give a crap, man. We could be together and not die. What are you not understanding here?
It's like you're not even human anymore. That's the point, dumbass.
Yeah, dude, because you're dead.
What's the alternative? Me dying and you living forever? Like, how is that better? I love how there's no debate with Viago and his girl.
Mhm.
She's just like, I love it. It's dope as hell.
It made me so happy that they brought this like ancient old woman in, and they're like, here, so you're just gonna pretend to drink blood and you're just gonna hang out with all these like dudes dressed weird. And she's like, yeah, okay.
She killed it. She was a very convincing old lady vampire. Love her with all my heart. Do we want to read through Noah's notes really quick?
Are we done already?
I'd
I
say
don't
we
think
ought
there's
to.
a whole lot more
We're
to
getting
go
that
on.
point. I mean, this whole thing has just been us
It's-
talking about things that made us laugh. So
Yeah, it's hard to talk about like comedies because
Mhm.
Eventually, it just turns into you rehashing the jokes.
Yeah. That's all
Um,
my notes are. All the notes that I took are just things that made me laugh.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
it. I've just got lines.
Pretty much looking at Noah's.
Yeah. One of the things that made me laugh a lot
Oh,
actually is
you can't go talking about your notes yet. We haven't done the music.
Yeah.
We haven't done the
Hey,
song yet.
God damn it.
Come on now.
Hey,
What's wrong with you?
Jeff, what sort of theme song we got going
So,
for Noah's Notes this week?
I was thinking this week we should revisit the Rob Zombie thing a little bit because number one, I just love Rob Zombie. Number two, I feel like I really botched it last time. I picked the wrong song. I shouldn't have gone for Super Beast. Instead, it should have been everybody's reading all of Noah's notes because that's just so much better, right?
you know what?
That
I
is pretty
that's
good.
so
That
much
actually
better.
really strong.
I actually, the only Rob Zombie song I know is Dracula.
That's the one
That's
most people
so
know.
valid.
It is
Yeah.
one of his best, to be fair.
It's a good one.
It's true.
I used to play this like jet ski racing game on the PlayStation 1,
Oh,
I
nice.
think. Maybe the PlayStation 2. And that was one of the songs on it. So that's the only reason I know that song.
You know, that reminds me of one of my favorite trends that movies had for a hot minute, which was having a Rob Zombie song on the soundtrack. There's like this stretch in the early 2000s.
That was in kind of a lot of movies, wasn't it?
It was a lot of movies. So like there was an original Rob Zombie song of Rob Zombie and Drowning Pool
Oh God,
collaborating
Drowning
for
Pool.
yeah,
I haven't
for
thought of them in a
forgot
while.
about that.
Daredevil. They did the song for the original Daredevil movie. Well, I guess
It was the
only
best
Daredevil
part of the movie.
It was the best part of the movie. It's
The
honestly,
song
the
sucked,
song-
but it was the best part of the movie.
I was about to say the song goes hard, but
Does it? I haven't listened to it in a long time. I forgot
think
it
it's-
existed.
but
But then
then,
there
you
was
know, we
Punisher
had,
Warzone,
yeah,
which
Punisher
also had that
Warzone.
Slipknot song.
Man, what a terrible use of that song.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, you know, for Punisher, they had an original Rob Zombie song for that. In The Watcher, they had a Rob Zombie. It was basically any movie that had like a horror tilt to it had a Marilyn Manson or Rob Zombie song
What
for like
about
this
the
8-year
Resident Evil
stretch.
movies that had a Perfect Circle song at the end of most, if not all of
Oh
them?
wow, they're trying so hard. Oh, I
No,
love
no,
fancy
I'm
music.
fully along with you. Is that they were like trying to rip that off by using Perfect Circle. None of them were good songs.
But you know, that's what it was like. It was a weird trend for a while, but I love it. But on that note, it's just like early PlayStation stuff had that same thing going on, and it slaps, and I love it.
On the Xbox 360, Forza 2 had a Cake song on it, and it's the first time I'd ever heard anything by Cake.
Was it The
Nice.
Distance?
No, you'd think, right? But
Oh.
it wasn't. I think it might have been. It might have been. I'm really trying to remember which one. I want to say Short Skirt, Long Jacket, but I know that wasn't it. Anyway, I'll look that
Huh.
up later because I actually have the YouTube playlist of all songs from Forza 2 saved because it's a big nostalgia bomb for me. So I'll go look into that at some point.
It wasn't Race
Um,
Car Yayas, was it?
No,
Okay, because
it was
tone-wise,
a
that
really
doesn't work at
basic
all.
one. Like Take as basic of a Cake song as you can think of.
That'd
But
be
it's
Short
not
Skirt,
The
Long
Distance
Jacket.
or
Not The
Race Car
Distance
Yaya.
or- Okay, so
Frank
I'm gonna read those.
Sinatra? I don't know.
All right, so what I wanted to say, unrelated to notes, but apparently is related to notes.
Oh.
One of my favorite visual gags was when they just carefully acknowledged that the documentary crew was there by dipping the boom mic heavily into scene during the dining room stuff. As they were walking into the room, you can see the boom mic centered in the door frame, like way in the back of the room.
I missed that.
This is second time I've seen the movie. First time I saw that, made me laugh a lot.
So
But anyway.
not all of these notes are actually just things that made Noah laugh. So this is going to be a turn of events where Noah's notes aren't funny so much as they're bringing up good
Oh.
discussion points that I think can bolster the conversation.
Ooh.
One that we got is the transition from Bat to Nick again was so freaking good, and the
Ooh.
fight where they're having
Oh,
where
yeah.
Nick gets just pelted as a bat against the garage door, and he turns.
A
into
lot of the
Penguin right at
effects
the
are
end.
really good.
They are, like, shockingly.
Wait, what's
so.
this half-finished note? I love how everybody's clearly not okay with what, Noah? What was I saying?
Um,
Sorry, yeah, I love that scene where Nick got thrown into that wall, and it was just like, boom, Nick's there, so smooth. I loved it.
Yeah,
it was.
it looked really good.
That was clean.
Also, earlier in that scene, I love how Vlad is like, "Bat fight, all right."
That was very good.
I love this note that observes that they all dress really normal when they're just around the house, but when they go out on the town, they look like freaks.
Yeah, I mean, they do though.
Kinda,
It's
yeah.
so good.
And it's interesting because I love each of their interpretations of what nice on the town look is
Yeah.
based on their era.
Deacon with either his marching band shirt, that he is resentful that Nick is doing much better,
Yeah.
or his big furry coat.
I love how in the scene where they're getting dressed, at first Viago is wearing like his like frilly cravat or whatever that is with his waistcoat and stuff, but he's wearing like camo pants
Yeah,
with it.
it's as if they all go like colorblind as soon as it's time to get dressed to go outside. What was that polka dot outfit? It was like some sort of animal print polka dot looking thing. What was
Oh my
that?
God, they
I
all
don't
have
even
such
know.
a terrible taste of style.
Vlad, a very put together person, except when it's time to leave the house, and then he was a mess.
Speaking of I love how awful how we love the effects. Noah's note here is I love how awful the werewolf costumes look.
Oh my gosh, they're so
Very
bad.
classic werewolf costumes. Very
Very
like
much.
OG werewolves.
Their limbs
Yeah.
were like a foot in diameter, and I loved it.
That's why they wear the track pants, man.
Yeah.
You know how big
I
you
love
get
in
when
the
you change?
reenactment. I love in the like reenactment where it shows Stu like waking up like in the morning, and then the werewolves are there, and they just have like a lot of the werewolves just completely
Just
naked, just like
naked.
smiling down at him, like nodding.
I love that. There's like
It's so
four dudes
fucking
hanging
funny.
dong in a boy band pose. It's like,
And they're all just like, "Hey, buddy."
My favorite thing about the reenactment is how for Stu's turn, we get a reenactment, but for Nick's turn, they stalked him and filmed his actual, like, turning.
Yes.
Like, you get shots of this actively ill man, but they can't step in or anything. So.
He's like, isn't this cold for you? And he's just like shivering up in the top corner of the ceiling.
Yeah. What other notes do we have? We have how Deacon totally did not help Nick feel better after Stu died. Like they're having a heart to heart and Deacon's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
friends die. That's just how life is. It's like, thanks, Deacon, you freaking jerk.
They really did a nice job of summing up how emotionally detached these guys were going to be after being alive for over 100 years.
Yeah.
I think it
Mhm.
works.
That's another thing about vampires that like Doctor Who always tried to do this with the Doctor about how he like loses everyone he loves and whatever. And elves and humans in Lord of the Rings have that same dynamic going on.
It's a lot more fun when they don't realize that they've lost that connection.
Uh-huh.
When they think that
Yeah.
they're like, I know just what it's like, buddy. I mean, shit, just the other day, my best friend died. We'd been friends for 7,000 years. It happens though, am I right? And then you just walk away. It's like, no, that's not normal.
Yeah, I like that way more than like the Doctor lamenting every human that dies until he gets like this toxic attitude as Matt Smith's Doctor, where he's just like, yeah, fuck it, I don't even give a shit anymore. And it's like, wait, no, dude, that's like your therapist wouldn't want that either. But with these guys, it's like it's a very obvious like conclusion for vampires to just not really get how much they've distanced. And that's something, again, I'm going to talk about the TV show again. I can't recommend watching this enough if you want more of this kind of lore expanded. Is in the TV show they make it very clear that vampires are very much they don't consider themselves humans anymore. They consider themselves to be their own creature, and that they are undead. There's even an episode where they realize that since they all technically died when they became vampires, they have ghosts running around out there with unfinished business. So they all summon their own ghosts to try and help solve that unfinished
What?
business.
Oh, that's funny.
Some ghosts have more trouble than others. I don't know if Nandor like even remembered how to speak his like original language. But like, yeah, that's like one thing that I really enjoy, that they clearly thought this stuff through, right? Like Emma said, they filmed so much more footage than they actually used, that like the TV show to me shows how much more potential they had and how much more understanding of this like greater lore they wanted to talk about. But they did a really good job of not getting bogged down by that lore for the like short movie that they did end up making. Which
they
I
really did cut
really
it down just to what you needed for the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I love knowing that they did actually think all that stuff through. Like, this is just the tip of the iceberg for potential that this world has, which is something that, like, with Twilight, I can't say the same for. It felt very Harry Potter. With each new movie, something new happened where you're just like, wait a minute. If this is the case, then why did this happen in the first like book or movie?
Nina, stop being mean. Jeff loves Twilight. You're tearing apart his favorite vampire movies.
I am so worried about the impression that people are going to get about me from the things that you say.
Okay, so I have this mental image here, right? Okay, so it's a picture of a sunrise. Okay? And it says, IDK man, I just really love the Twilight movies. And then in scripty font on the bottom, it says just Jeff with a G things.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to make that. I'm going to make that. I'm going to post that, or I'm going to have Emma post that on the main podcast Twitter account. And then no one's going to know the context until they listen to this episode, and it's going to be great.
I think it's very funny.
You know what's really funny about you saying Jeff with a G? Because I'm assuming you're actually going to spell out Jeff with a G.
No, I'm going to put
than
Jeff
just writing it.
Like Jeff and then with a G.
Yeah, okay, that's the way that it needs to be. Because that's a thing that was actually a joke at my old job with one of my bosses.
Really?
Yeah, with I shouldn't say his name. You know who I'm talking about though.
Slim.
Slim.
Hey.
No.
Oh, Slim.
Yeah. So there was this thing one time that happened where he was trying to get my attention and I didn't hear him for whatever reason. And he was like, Jeff, I need you to pay more attention. I need you to, really be like keeping an ear out for when somebody needs you. Cause I really need you to like actually be present here and stuff. And I was like, oh, sorry, dude. I did hear you, but I thought you were saying Jeff with a G, so you wouldn't have been talking to me. And he was like, okay, that's funny, so I'm not mad at you, but I really need you to get it together.
Oh, that's
and that
really
just
good.
became a joke with us from then on. Anytime I did something wrong, he would be like, Jeff with a G.
Man, Slim was not that bad. In the grand scheme of managers there, Slim was pretty much fine.
I felt like I understood him on a level that I didn't with a lot of other people. Like, I felt like he was really putting an effort in.
Yeah. And everyone else just wanted to get mad.
You talking
that was
about
like
me?
the whole thing. No, I'm talking about all the other managers, myself included, in fairness.
Yeah.
We're still on a podcast about horror movie, guys.
It was a
We've
horror
been talking
movie,
about
Nina.
Twilight for half of it. We've been talking about the wrong movie for half of the podcast. We can talk
what do you
about
expect
other
from
stuff.
us?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out which Cake song was on the Forza 2 soundtrack.
I really can't figure out what Cake song would make any sense to have on there. Like,
oh, none.
I wish it was Frank Sinatra, even though I know they wouldn't put that song.
No,
on
it
the
doesn't
Forza
work at
sound.
all, but it would be funny.
It's too
It
explicit.
might have been Forza 4.
It could be Fashion Nugget.
I guess.
Also, just too many cuss words there, but
I just want it to be race car yayas.
Right?
There's just like the mental image of that lazy song bumbling along while some cars just drift around.
It is entirely the wrong vibe. But
It's so perfect.
Yeah, well,
Man,
I mean, as much
they
as
should
any
have had
Cake
Rob Zombie
song,
make an original song for him.
They
should have had
It elevated Daredevil,
cover
it elevated Warzone,
Cake covering a Rob Zombie song.
and we're gonna dig through the ditches. Through the ditches.
Of my Dragula.
Oh my god.
Burn, burn.
Oh my god.
Dead
If I have
I
to
am
post
the one. Exterminate the sun.
This is so wasteful.
This is Nina. You don't know.
This is comedy
Um,
gold.
This is how Jeff and I write songs.
It is.
Every song we have ever written has started out with some really
This is
dumb joke
actually a
like
perfect
this.
opportunity to talk about the use of music and what we do in the shadows, because
Oh, it
it
is.
actually is really interesting. The amount of eclectic sounds they have going on.
I like how
That's
a lot
true.
of the music was just them. Now, real quick, because I don't think Emma thought she was going to be gone this long. Her food allegedly arrived, so she went to go get it. And the guy's not here. That's why she's not here right now. That's why she's been missing for a minute. She'll be back as soon as she can.
Oh, it was short skirt, long jacket, by the way.
It was short skirt.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't. Anyway, I loved the first time we get music introduced, and it's the worst trio I've ever heard in my life. Viago
Yeah.
just stopping to drop his music on the floor and then continue playing.
Yeah.
You hear the music start as Viago's talking about his girlfriend,
Mhm.
and it's like captioned as just being like sad music playing, and then it cuts to show you that this really shitty sad horn you've been hearing is actually being played by Viago, and the backing instruments are the other two roommates.
And it's really not
Um,
until then that you realize just how terrible the music is.
Yeah, you hear it and you're like, huh, this blows. I wish they had put some more money into their soundtrack. Or, yeah, this is bad. Weird artistic take, I guess.
That's something I'd love to know from the directors and creators of this movie. Is I'd love to know what the thought process was on scoring this movie, because to me it sounds a lot like they deliberately chose musical elements from a time of history where a lot of vampires would have come from, kind of got this eclectic old-fashioned nonsense going on in the background that feels very whack. I'm sorry, I'm just remembering the chase scene through the house where there's just the like insane like nightmare fuel music going on in the background. But it fits the characters so well that I can't
does.
imagine scoring it any other way, but it's still such a weird choice to me. That's just my
Well,
that's
it's
just
just
my
like-
2 cents.
I mean, once you get to know the characters, what else can you do with the soundtrack other than like lean super like straight and melodramatic with it so that it's like really off-put from the tone of the actual movie?
Yeah.
I don't feel like that would be as funny though.
No, I
As-
honestly have no other idea for how they could have gone with this with the soundtrack for this movie.
Yeah.
The opening theme for the movie, I used to know the name to this song. But it is like this folk song that repeats the phrase "you're dead" over and over again. It's great. It's super dope.
I think it's just called You're Dead.
It's called "You're Dead" by
Nice.
Norma Tanega. It looks like is the name.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Norma Tanega.
And it's dope, and it's also the theme song for the TV show, so it keeps things really consistent. I love that while they're playing it, you get to see pictures of each of the vampires in the past. They keep that consistent with the TV show as well. You get to see portraits of each of the cast through
Nice.
time, which is great when it gets to Guillermo and you just get to see little baby Guillermo dressed up as a vampire at different stages of his life. It's
That's very
so
funny.
adorable. Yeah, I think I'm leaving a pause there for a second, but I think we should just vibe and cut out the next section until Emma gets back so that we can yeah, all right. So next week we'll have Emma's choice, but for this week, thank you for listening. We have been Casual Obsession Horror Podcast, the horror podcast where we talk about horror movies. I've been Nina. You can find me on Twitter at Nina Wolverina or at House Usher Rises. I will be making that previously discussed Jeff with a G graphic and posting it somewhere, maybe on our podcast Twitter account.
Who even knows?
Which is Casual Horror Pod at twitter.com. So there's that.
Yeah, it's casualhorrorpod.twitter.com.
That's the one.
You rude boy. Anyway.
I'm Noah. I don't know why I did that
Wah, wah,
voice.
wah.
I've been doing just like jazz hands this whole time while Nina was talking, and that just kind of drained into my voice. You can find me at Bubba the Bad, BUBBADABAD. I am on Twitch, Twitter, and Insta. I'm doing stuff. Yeah. That's about it. You can find me on Letterboxd, actually, if you want to see the movies that I'm watching. I'm not watching a
Letterboxd.
lot.
Is
but-
that where the 9-star Halloween review is?
No, it's where the 8-star Halloween review is.
Aw. Disappointing.
I know, right?
I have been Jeff. You can find me on Twitter at Bubbadawubbadadab, and you can find me on Instagram at The Hammer of Jeff.
And I am Last, and I am Emma. You can find me on Twitter at MJade2017. Yeah. I'm also going to be leading the discussion for next week's episode, where we'll be talking about The Endless. I know nothing about this movie. I haven't seen it before. I was just looking up potential cool movies to watch, and this came up, and I was like, sure, let's do it. And so we're doing it.
I'm really excited.
We are going to
I have some
have
good things.
a friend of the podcast, Graham, guesting. He'll be our first guest ever. It's an exciting time. One of us will sit out. You'll find out which one it will be next week. It probably won't be me, since I'm leading the discussion. But you
But
never know.
Anything could happen on a guest
Anything
episode.
can
Yeah.
happen.
Anything will happen.
It's an unknown. We've never had a
Exactly.
guest before.
So yeah, thank you all so much for listening, and yeah, we'll catch you later.